warm welcome to this very special interview with one of the biggest bankers in India today, the very charismatic Aditya Puri, MD and CEO of HDFC Bank. Thank you, Mr. Puri, for speaking to ET Now. Let's look at the macroeconomic situation first. There's a view in the industry that despite the government making the right noises, there's hardly any action on the ground. Do you believe it's time for the government to start walking the talk?
Well, let me give you our understanding as to what we think is happening. If you really look at it, and if we divide this into three, where we were, where we are, and where we're going to go, I think it becomes a much clearer roadmap. So when the government came in, you had a situation where you had high inflation, you had a current account deficit, you had a fiscal deficit, you had issues in terms of decision making, and you had the rating agencies looking actually to downgrade India. You have a situation now today that the current account is fine, the fiscal deficit is doing well, inflation is under control, and we have a stable government, and we are among the fastest growing economies in the world. We also have a situation going forward where the government has clearly defined their intent in terms of land acquisition, in terms of environment, in terms of the coal problem, in terms of mining, in terms of what they're going to do about subsidies, in terms of the GST, in terms of center-state relations. So I think we have a very bright prospect. Obviously, to expect difficult problems to be sorted out overnight is, how would you say, would be the best of circumstances, but they can't. But there has been a lot of work that's put in. The bureaucracy is working. There is clearer definition of duties. Large amounts of existing projects have been unblocked. You're getting a clearer policy decision. So I think we're on the right track.
But you spoke about decision making. Now, you've experienced it yourself with the HDFC Bank's capital raising program taking a long time to get approval from the government. So where lies the problem then?
Okay. Now, I actually wanted to put on record my gratitude to the government for an expeditious clearing of our FIPB proposal. Especially the FIPB, the Ministry of Finance, the Reserve Bank of India, and the government, which allowed us to meet US stock market deadlines, because without which we couldn't have had our issue. Regarding the delay I don't think was anybody's fault. So first we had applied for exemption because we had legal opinion that HDFC shareholding should not be considered foreign shareholding. That went through all the ministries and the law ministry, and finally they came back and said that was not possible because their interpretation was it did require it, and since they make the law, that's what it is. Subsequently, they were looking at, the UPA government was looking at a change in policy, and so they said with the change in policy, your issues would also be taken care of. So they looked at a change in policy for quite some time, and thereafter I think we had the elections, and that got delayed. Then you had the change in government and the secretary. And then we said, can we just apply for what is within the law? And I think in that, the government, that is the NDA government, was very expeditious. And I would like to place my record and thanks to the FIPB, to the Ministry of Finance, to the RBI, and to the Government of India.
Let's look at the sentiment itself. Both India and foreign investors are quite, they feel that the sentiment is quite upbeat, but we've not seen that translating into action. What do you think is the reason for that?
I don't think so. If you see action, let me backtrack. If you see the issue that we just did, I think it's been acknowledged globally as one of the best managed issues. More than the management, we had an overwhelming subscription. We opened the issue when India was almost going to sleep, and we closed it before India woke up. Now, you don't get that kind of overwhelming response unless the investors are very confident about the future of India. And if you, as I said when I started the interview, if you look at the fact that we are one of the fastest growing economies, stable politics, inflation under control, a great RBI governor, clear policies in terms of what our issues are, and a clear growth path which should lead. So the only issue that people keep raising again and again is the investment. The investment will come, but you can't put the cart before the horse. So the investment will come as these things get sorted out. So for instance, you would have seen today, I think the coal auctions are a success. Now people like JSPL are laughing. And so if that comes through, that's a major achievement. They are looking at, I was talking to the DIPP, they are looking to see that they come in the top 50 in terms of ease of doing business. So this thing will come and investment will follow. In the initial stages, I think the government has also now probably created headroom with the money that will come in for the spectrum, the money that will come in for the coal auction, the money that will come in for divestment, and the money, surplus money that is lying with PSUs, that they can lead the investment cycle.
So with the budget just a week away, what is your expectation? Are you expecting any big bang announcements?
I think the budget should be seen as a continuum of the government's policies. So what you could possibly expect to see there is rationalization of subsidies. Mind you, I say rationalization, not reduction, because this is taking subsidies to reach the intended beneficiaries. You can see some changes in the tax structure to promote investment, promote savings, both of which are needed, as well as simplification. You can see some further announcement on center-state allocations and sharing and budgeting process. You probably could see some of it on the GST. You would probably see some changes in the agriculture policy and some clearer definition on the Make in India so that we can increase manufacturing. So it would be a continuum of what the government is saying. So let's not look at this as a sprint. This is a marathon. This is a marathon that globally people have faith in. And I think we're in the right direction.
So let me pin you down on that.
Please do.
List out 3 things that you expect from the Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, that could bring about significant changes on the ground.
I think, see, now this is the whole thing. To expect the budget to be a big impact, I think a lot of it has already been done. So if you see what I said.
A lot of talk, you mean?
No, it's not a lot of talk. Just because a lot of you haven't seen it doesn't mean there's a lot of talk. There is a hell of a lot of work going into make in India and to make things easier. There is a hell of a lot of work going in on power. There's a lot of work going on minerals. There is a lot of work going on in how infrastructure financing can be done. There is substantial discussions in terms of how best to have center-state relations, which you will see in the budget. So I'm saying, please look at the whole thing. What do you want today? If I were to ask you, and I don't want to put you in that position, what do you want for India? You want the land acquisition sorted out. You want the environment sorted out. You want coal sorted out. You want the minerals policy sorted out. You want something on the agriculture pricing and mechanism to be sorted out. All of these have been made. Now, whether they're sorted out in the budget or in the near future, I don't think that's that important, but sorted out they will be.
So there is one school of thought that believes that the government should not be tied down by the fiscal deficit numbers and instead give growth a chance. Where do you stand in this debate?
I think trying to artificially promote growth like a QE2, which doesn't increase demand, but creates other issues. And I think more than my standing, if you listen to what Dr. Rajan has said and if you listen to what the Finance Minister, Mr. Jaitley, has said, I think they're quite firm in maintaining the fiscal deficit. And I think they've created the room. Both these things are not expected, the kind of money that will come in on the coal and the spectrum. So if they just get this kind of money to come in, they have some innovative means of financing, as well as they have a situation where public sector starts spending. I don't think they need to do a big bang expenditure that substantially needs to alter the fiscal discipline, which is moving in the right path and will also help the RBI governor thereby reduce rates.
Let's look at inflation. Inflation is more or less under control. Growth is stuttering. We've seen a token 25 basis points rate cut. Do you think RBI should take a more proactive stance going forward? And what's your projection of the interest rate cycle looking at throughout the calendar year?
The way I see it, I think Governor Rajan has said it. Interest rates, the trajectory is down. They put in place benchmarks in terms of which will result in a reduction of the interest rate, which is what will happen to inflation and what will happen to the fiscal deficit. We were expecting some cut at this point of time, but I think rightly he said with the budget around the corner, maybe he's looking for a bigger cut going down. But I'd say between 50 to 75 basis points you could expect during the rest of the year. I wouldn't want to hazard when that would happen, but I would say that there are more important things to be done to revive the economy than a 25 basis point interest rate cut.
But on the flip side, do you think a direct 50 basis points cut could be the panacea for all the economy's ills?
I think everything together coming could be the panacea. That is, the budget has investment incentives, there's things for savings, there's the rationalization of the structure, there's some government expenditure, manufacturing is made easy, policies, and on top of that, the interest rate. And God willing, it seems He's kind to the country at this point of time. We should get it right.
Okay, let's now talk about the bank, HDFC Bank itself.
Now you brought me into comfortable territory. Okay.
You've just finished the big capital raising program. What next? How long do you think will this capital hold good for the bank?
Depends upon the rate of growth. See, the reason we've gone in for the capital raising, I think, if you link it to all the discussion that we've had previously, which is gratuitous and out of my macroeconomic expertise, but the reason we're raising it because we expect growth to pick up substantially. So depending upon the rate of growth in GDP and consequent to our growth, in any case, I don't think we would need capital in the near future in the next 2 to 3 years. But we are expecting growth and we are providing for that.
Okay, but looking at your growth numbers, loan growth numbers, which was at a 50% level, compounded growth, say in the early 20s, it's now slowed down to 17% in the last quarter. So
we have 25 to 30.
Loan growth.
Loan growth. At some points, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so let alone the slowdown, where do you think the problem is? Is this the size that is restricting or slowing down the growth in the loan book?
No, absolutely not. Now, without going into the new calculation of GDP, traditionally the banking sector advances have grown at about 2.5 times real GDP. So if you take GDP at 5.2, 5.3, you take 2.5 times that's 12.5, and we gain market share of about 4 to 5%. So that brings us to 17, 18%, which is just fine. Nothing has gone wrong. If the GDP number, say, was to go to 7%, and we maintained our 2.5, that's 14 plus 17.5 plus 5, so that'll be 23%. Bottom line, top line would be 25%, which would make you happy. So nothing is wrong. Everything is fine. We're expecting to go back to our growth trajectory as the GDP picks up. Also, obviously, we are an intermediary. The higher the GDP, the greater the multiplier because of the velocity. So
is the 20-25% growth the new normal for HDFC Bank as opposed to, say, a 30%, 30-35%?
No, there's no new normal. Ours is a function of GDP. Say GDP grows at 7.5.
Not balance sheet size.
No. Even the growth, the balance sheet size, if we grow on a profitable basis. Our margin remains largely steady. So it's a function of GDP. So as GDP grows, we will grow proportionately with a 4 to 5% rate. So there is no new normal. We are dependent, we straddle the Indian GDP, we are dependent on the Indian GDP growth.
We've also seen that HDFC has managed to bring down its credit costs, say from 2% in 2007 to around 60 to 70 basis points. How long do you think this lower provisioning can continue? Is this sustainable, or do you think this is just a cycle?
I think provisioning always is a part of cost of doing business for a bank. But obviously, if we presume that the tougher times are over, then as we go into a boom period, and we had provided when we had the 2%, we had higher counter-cyclical provisioning as well. Normally, our credit costs are about 1 odd %. So going forward, obviously, if the economy picks up, the NPAs are less.
So is that the new normal that we are looking at?
Could be. Okay. Could be. I'm not willing to comment as yet. We'd like to see it for a prolonged period of time so that we can then decide that this is, just like the governor is saying, can I see inflation down for a while?
But you've always been able to manage your asset quality.
So our asset quality is fine. In fact, it's improving.
Yeah.
So I'm just not wanting to commit on national television what the NPA numbers would be. Suffice it to say, they'll be the best in the industry and probably globally.
Okay. Well, we've seen many big banks like SBI tying up with corporates for Payments Bank. Do you have any plans for any such tie-up to drive growth?
At the moment, we are a large payment bank within HDFC itself, within the HDFC Bank. We will see how it goes, and then if we find that there is enough scope, then we will apply later.
what is your view on the whole digitization in banks? Where do you see that? Where do you see digitization in banks going forward? And what's the future of banking going forward?
Okay. If you look at it, this is something I really like because, I had gone at the invitation of MasterCard because a lot of people told me there were these bright minds in Silicon Valley waiting to disrupt banking all over the world and went to see what was happening. And when I saw that, you actually saw that they were not trying to disrupt banking. They were using it as a platform to provide more convenience to the customer. So when we came back and had our own management meet, what we have to understand what's happened. In the old days, the network was roads, the physical network was the roads, water, electricity, and then commerce moved on that. Then you had the invisible networks of telecom, radio, television, etc. And then when the internet came about, everything started talking to each other, and you got the social networks coming about. When this happens, then issues in terms of geography, scaling, all this disappear. And since there's a lot of information available, the power shifts to the customer. When the power shifts to the customer, you have to deliver to the customer what he wants, how he wants, where he wants. So what did we see happening? We saw the advent of big data. Big data, coupled with the fact that you have computing capacity at a lower cost, allows you to analyze your data in a manner that you can provide the right product to the right customer at the right time. We then saw social media come in, which allows you to further come up with knowledge about your customer, whereby to the financial and demographic criteria, you can add psychographic criteria and know what he buys, what he sells, where does he go to drink, what movies he sees. So thereby you can have a complete profile of his needs. You also had the advent of e-commerce because when this happens, basically instead of road, you move on the net and your store is on the net itself. So it's no different. E-commerce will also develop. You also had changes in marketing. When you look at India, 65% of India is below the age of 35. So digital adoption has to be one of the biggest opportunities in India, and there's a widespread geography. We are proud that we will be market leaders, among the global market leaders in digital banking. So we've already launched, not on a smartphone, but on a regular phone, what we call Bank Motime, which is almost everything that you can do at a bank, you can do on this phone. Then we launched Chiller, which is for making small payments mobile to mobile. Then we've launched Smart Buy, where you come onto our site on a secure basis with two-factor authentication. And from our site, you can go to any other site, and you don't have to give your credit card details to all instantly, and you can get the discounts, coupled with the fact that we've got a locator there. So wherever you're sitting, it'll also use GPRS to tell you, here you are, here are the discounts, and then you've got options. I'd strongly recommend you have a look at our Smart Buy. Whether you want dining, you want entertainment, you want air tickets, and you sit down there and say, here are the discounts, and these are substantial discounts, between 10, 20 to 25%. Discounts on dining. When you go for dining, they'll tell you whether you want Chinese or you want continental, all over the place. If you want beer, they'll tell you where the closest place you can get a discount on a liquor shop. If you want airline, they will actually do the search for you and tell you for the ticket from where to where you want, which is the cheapest. Plus, over and above the other sites, you can of course go through our Smart Buy into Amazon and Flipkart and Snapdeal and eBay and all of that. But we also have, because we are one of the largest acquirers, so on our merchant site, you can basically, over and above these, you would get another 50,000 of our merchants offering you discounts. We are also offering the ability to book in advance. Say you're running to office and you want to book your coffee in Starbucks, you can book it, pay in advance, just collect it and move along. You would also be able to pay home delivery without cash. All this is possible because we invested in data warehousing. We've got analytics to then determine how to use the data available on the data warehousing. We've got outbound calling centers where we have automated dialers. We have also customer relationship management systems. We have lead management systems. We have all the technology that allows us to be agnostic to the access device that you use, whether it's mobile, whether it's the tablet, whether it's the computer. Basically, we also do banking, but we make your financial services life very easy. We today, compared to the rest of the industry, our nearest competitor does 1/4 of the volumes that we do on our mobile, and this is increasing by the day. It also changes geography in terms of the way people can bank, except for cash, which now with the Jan Dhan Yojana and every village being covered and there being interoperability, he can go there and to the nearest place and get cash as well. So we think this is a major, major opportunity.
Okay.
And we are leaders.
Okay, great. Two universal banks in IDFC and Bandhan, and handful of payment and small finance banks. How do you see the whole landscape shaping up? How do you see competition shaping up?
Firstly, I believe that, more than I believe, if you see research, fundamentally, India is underpenetrated in financial services. So if you go back to what the Reserve Bank said, is try and meet the needs of the entire population. So the payment banks is for the people in the far-flung areas. The small banks are more attuned to the needs of the local guys. Banking itself, we are asking to spread out. So there is enough scope for everybody. And it will evolve. So there's place for everyone.
So you don't think it's going to be disruptive?
I don't think so.
Well, talking about the possible merger of HDFC and HDFC Bank, it's not a question of if, but it's all about when. What do you think is coming in the way of this mega merger?
Both Deepak and me have always said that in the long run, the merger makes sense. We need favorable circumstances in terms of some changes in regulations related to the static balance sheet of HDFC, and we are working on that. And at the moment, there is no proposal on the table. As and when it makes sense, we'll come back to you.
But there is a view within the group that merger has to happen?
Has to happen, cannot. I just told you, if it makes sense and if the favorable circumstances come, it's got to make sense to both parties. There have to be favorable circumstances and it has to make sense to the world. So if those happen, of course there's a sense. And do we think it's something that it should happen if things go right? Yes.
Well, RBI has increased the upper limit for retirement of managing directors to 70.
Yeah.
That's given you another innings of 6 years at the helm of HDFC Bank. Would you want to complete the whole term, or how long would you look at serving the term?
What do you think?
It's up to you.
At this point of time, why not?
Okay.
As long as I feel it's not me alone. It's got to be me, it's got to be the board of directors, it's got to be the shareholders. So I think as long as I can perform and deliver, and we are all in mutual consent, why not?
Okay, so you're here to serve the entire 6 years at HDFC
I never
Bank.
said that. I said on a mutually acceptable basis, at this point, I don't see any reason why not.
Okay,
But it's not my decision alone. I hope you understand that. It's a decision of the board of directors and the shareholders.
But what would stand?
Am I willing? Yes.
But what would come in the way?
I don't know. I don't think anything should.
With that, we would like to thank you for joining us and speaking to ET Now.
Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.